What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got another sweet Golgari list. This one time we're here in Standard, running a Deathtouch tribal list. And of course we have some fantastic new Deathtouch creatures. Obviously one of them is the Crystalline Giant. It's a 3/3 that can get Deathtouch among these other keyword abilities. But yeah, just a fantastic way to flesh out our 3-drop slot. And of course, Grimdancer as well. You get to choose Menace, Deathtouch, or Lifelink. And of course, we're always going to choose Deathtouch for our tribal deck. And then it's just a matter of Menace or Lifelink, depending on kind of what you're up against. If your opponent's obviously not playing very many creatures, the Menace can be better because they're going to have fewer creatures to block with. And of course, Lifelink, if your opponent's running a very aggressive deck, something like Red, obviously, then you'll need the Life when that is important. We're also at Chevill, Bane of Monsters. It's a 2-mana 1/3 with Deathtouch. And we get to put a bounty counter on a creature on our opponent, on a creature or planeswalker on our opponent's side during our upkeep. And whenever that permanent dies, we gain 3 life and draw a card. So just kind of a fantastic card value engine, since we're going to be kind of killing things anyways, with obviously the sweet Golgari removal package, and then all of our creatures having Deathtouch, or almost all of our creatures having Deathtouch. We also got some removal here in Easy Prey. Obviously, Heartless Act is the better removal spell, but it doesn't really work with the Chevill because it's going to have a bounty counter on it. And of course, Heartless Act, you can remove counters, or you can kill a creature that does not have a counter on it of any kind. So we're going to run Easy Prey as our 2-mana removal spell. With 2 mana instant speed, it's still a fantastic option. There's still plenty of creatures you can hit that cost 1 or 2 mana. And of course, if you're not up against that matchup or you don't need it, you can always cycle it away. So it's never really a dead card. And of course, we can just sideboard it out in games 2 and 3 if necessary. And of course, the 1-drop slot here, running the Foulmire Knight. It's a 1/1 Deathtouch for 1. And of course, you can play the sorcery, instant speed adventure side, where you can draw a card and lose a life for 3 mana. So another way to kind of help us get some card advantage. The Knight of Ebon Legion, of course, is 1/2. You have to activate its ability to give it Deathtouch, but just a fantastic card on its own. Of course, the Orzhov Enforcer, 1/2 Deathtouch with the Afterlife 1. It's pretty sweet. And since we don't have Heartless Act, we're going to run a copy of Assassin's Trophy, just kind of a versatile removal, as we can destroy any permanent on our opponent's side. And then, of course, Murderous Rider for some additional removal for creatures and planeswalkers, and then being able to play it down as a 2/3 lifelinker is great. And of course, Questing Beast has all the keyword abilities: Vigilance, Deathtouch, Haste, so it fits right in. Just a 2-of since it is legendary. And yeah, we also got a couple copies of Vraska, another way to kind of kill permanents on our opponent's side, especially creatures. And then since our curve does top out at 4, it's a nice way to kind of sacrifice any lands when we flood out to continue drawing cards as well. And then, of course, Vraska Swarm's Eminence that kind of finishes off our Deathtouch theme here. 4 mana 5 Loyalty Planeswalker, -2 to make a 1/1 Assassin creature token with Deathtouch, and whenever it deals damage to a Planeswalker, destroy that Planeswalker. So that's pretty sweet. So that kind of forces your opponent into some bad blocks there. And of course, whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch deals damage to a player or planeswalker, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Since most of these Deathtouch creatures are pretty understated, Vraska Swarm's Eminence is a nice way to kind of give them additional power boost. Alright, so going over our mana base, it is mostly skewed towards black. So we've got 2 Castle Locthwains, 9 Swamp, 5 Forest, 4 Overgrown Tomb, and instead of the Temple, we're running 4 Fabled Passage. Since we are kind of an aggro deck, I want to play have untapped lands as much as possible. And since the Temple always comes in tapped, I think Fabled Passage is better because it has at least the upside to come in as your 4th land untapped. And a little bit of fixing as well is great. The Grafdigger's Cage here in the sideboard, of course. We don't really have much going on as far as our graveyard interaction, so we're perfectly happy casting this on certain opponents. Obviously, there's plenty of Luris, Winota, all kinds of shenanigans going on, so Grafdigger has just kind of become a must. 4 Agonizing Remorse for those kind of mid-rangey and control lists. 2 Legion's End for some additional kind of removal against aggro. Since our Deathtouch creature works really well against bigger creatures, but sometimes we can get kind of outswarmed by other creatures, by a kind of a go-wide strategies, I should say. 1 more Assassin's Trophy for that versatility. And of course, 4th Murderous Rider here in the sideboard for especially Planeswalker or bigger creature matchups. 2 copies of Gemrazer for some artifact and enchantment hate, and also kind of turn our Deathtouch creatures into 4/4s with Reach and Trample. It's pretty sweet. And then for very grindy matchups, a couple copies of Vivien. We can take out the Vraska Golgari Queen and bring in a couple copies of Vivien, and we can just keep pumping out tokens. It doesn't quite fit in with our Deathtouch theme, but just a fantastic value engine. So yeah, we're gonna run that. Let's jump into some. Okay, not sure what that prize was all about. Sweet. No, not Brawl. We're running traditional standard Deathtouch. Our Deathtouch Queen, Vraska. So hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you're at. Sweet. Up against Mr. DJ Cat 66. So I'm gonna go first. It's a little land heavy, but we'll try it. The Knight of Ebon Legion is hard to pass up, and depending on what we draw, we could always hold up the Foulmire Knight just for the card draw later. But probably just play it here on turn 2 just to get another threat down. And see what we're up against. Evolving Wilds, okay. So it could be Sacrifice, could just be a budget mana base. Always throw off to a little bit of a slow start, so it'll kind of help us buy time to find more creatures. And removal. Okay, Chevill is decent. So we're going to attack in for the Knight. Not really milking priority on this Evolving Wilds. Yeah, cast it during your opponent's combat step, just because. Or crack it, I should say. So yeah, we'll attack in for 1, play our Chevill, and if they have a creature here on 2, we'll get a put a bounty counter on it on our upkeep. And we'll have 3 mana open to either activate Knight, or maybe go for a card draw, or see what else we draw into. So have plenty of 3-drops in the deck. Okay, so they're on red. As one of their colors, at least. It's a pretty sweet little animation there. This is Gruul or Jeskai or something. Rakdos, sure. So they're going to have plenty of removal on their side. And right away they have Disfigure. Okay. It's a pretty medium removal spell these days, but Zero still, with all the lure sticks, I guess is not bad. And with all these lands, I think we just want to hold up the card draw here. Haunted Nightmare. Okay. We already have Deathtouch, so not really much downside for them. All the lands. Meant to go Fabled Passage, but sure. So we do need the additional black to get the Foulmire Knight. Could attack in here. Got plenty of things to block with. They're not going to block, so let's get in for 1, I guess, before they have removal. They do go for the block. Okay, so I have 2 creatures left to block as far as the menace goes. And we'll lose both, but then we'll gain a token from the Orzhov Enforcer, unless they have some removal here. Okay, they have their own Knight of Ebon Legion. And Vampire of the Dire Moon. Have to find somebody to deal with their Deathtouch. We are supposed to be the Deathtouch deck. Okay, they do not go for any place. So draw a card. I think we'll just hold back on the blocks here and wait till we can find some removal. Grimdancer is okay. We'll just play the Tomb tap just to preserve our life total, and then we can start cracking these Fabled Passages here in the next couple turns. So we'll have 6 mana open. So we can play the Grimdancer and something else, depending on what we draw. Hopefully it's not more lands. We've seen plenty of those already. So they're stuck on 1 red. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Okay, that seems pretty interesting to play in your Rakdos list, a Goblin Gathering. Well, we have Deathtouch as well. I think I'm okay with trading here. And I'm just trying to figure out a way through our Deathtouch as well, maybe. And crack this Fabled Passage. Try to get rid of some lands. Deathtouch. And I have plenty of creatures, so let's go with Lifelink. And still don't really have good attacks. These two 1/1 tokens are a little annoying. The downside of running all these creatures. Now they find another red source. Seem pretty aggressive attacking in with their 2 creatures, but who knows what else they're running here. Vraska is pretty fantastic. We can pick off this Hunted Nightmare. They could have a shock or something to deal with it, or even just a Murderous Rider, or who knows. But that's fine. I'm happy to collect my bounty. I'd prefer Vraska to stick around, but it's a lot to ask against a Rakdos list. So yeah, we'll just get the value where we can.
Back to the shadows for now.
Let's see what we find here. There's a Mecha Godzilla. Okay, our opponent scoops it up since their board is being picked off. They might have been flooding out as well there. Okay, so against another Deathtouch list. So I do want these Legions End. You can either clean up their tokens or their Orzhov Enforcer or Knight. Plenty of good targets. Vraska seemed pretty solid there. I don't think it's so grindy we need to bring in a Vivien. I think the Vraska worked out pretty good. I think Chevill is fine, especially if they're running Goblin Gathering and little things like that. Just the value that creates in this kind of matchup is, I think, is going to be helpful over, since we're not bringing in Vivien or anything like that. Alright, so they were a little stuck on lands. They might have had some land flooding as well, like we did, but we were able to fight through it. A little bit of a slower start, but I'm not going to say no to a Murderous Rider. And the means to cast it. They get the Knight here, that's going to be pretty brutal. They go for Duress. Since we're a Deathtouch creature deck, Duress seems pretty medium against this. When it gets over to our Planeswalkers, I guess, but doesn't hit anything here. They're mostly creature based. Play the Tomb. Just play the lands they know about, but I'd rather just get the tomb down here on turn 2, unless we find a 2-drop. I don't think it's that critical that they know that we drew another land. Evolving Wilds. So a bit of a slow start from them, so that's definitely to our advantage with this hand. Okay, Scorpion. We draw something good here. Okay, Vraska 4. Swarm's Eminence is pretty sweet. Of course, they have more Duress or Agonizing Remorse that could take care of it, but it's alright. The nice thing about Murderous Rider is that it's immune from things like Duress. Duress just is kind of not really in a good spot right now thanks to the adventure spells. You're better off with Drill Bit or Agonizing Remorse. Especially with the graveyard shenanigans, having Agonizing Remorse, being able to exile like a Uro or a Kroxa. Not that that happens very often, but just having that little bit of upside is better. So I went with red, so So must have another black source in hand. So now we can play our Mecha Godzilla, but they probably have some removal for it right away. No hexproof counter, which would have been ideal, but first strike is pretty decent, especially against Deathtouch. Okay, so they're running Lurrus in their main deck. They don't have anything to get back with it. Let's say no blocks. They can cast it immediately. Nope. Alright. So we're in a little bit of an awkward spot here, but I think we just want to get rid of this Lurrus. Just as far as mana goes, we're not super efficient, but I think we're fine with just killing Lurrus, getting that off the board for them. Especially the lifelink and be able to recast the Scorpion at some point. Piper of the Swarm. Okay, so they can make a bunch of tokens. So next one we have 5 mana. We'll just go ahead and play the land they know about. So we'll play the Chevill and the Murderous Rider. So we got first strike, and there we go. Now we got the Deathtouch. I think we'll attack him. I mean, they're not going to attack here. They can attack here. And hold mana open to activate it, but then they probably don't have mana left to activate the Piper. They block. That's curious. Would not have made that block. I would have definitely just taken it. I think the Knight is much better than the Piper. Sure, these 1/1 tokens are annoying, but you can only make one a turn. So now they're kind of going wide a little bit. Yeah, we'll gain a life, lose a life. Let's get the creature off the board. I think that's fine. Yeah, target the Piper. Orzhov Enforcer is decent. Drop you. And Vraska.
I'm good at what I do.
We'll go ahead and go to combat with our flying Crystalline Giant. Oh yeah. And Deathtouch, so now it's going to get countered thanks to Vraska. Definitely want to make a 1/1 as well. So we're going fairly wide ourselves, so they still don't have good attacks. The Rat does have Menace though. So if we'll see if they want to start attacking down our Vraska. And the question is, how many activations do we want off of this? Because we do have some ways to get in for Deathtouch, although... let's go ahead and crack this. They have all these tokens to block with, so we're not really in a great spot to attack outside of our Crystalline Giant. Let's get that Piper off the board so they can't keep pumping out tokens every turn.
I guess today's your lucky day.
Draw a card thanks to Chevill. More lands. Yeah, they don't have good attacks still, so yeah, let's go ahead and activate one more time.
Keep your friends close.
Alright, and our opponent packs it in. So Planeswalkers helping us go wide and dealing with a pretty decent Rakdos aggro list. Obviously not a tier 1 or anything like that, but all those tokens can certainly make things difficult for a Planeswalker or Planeswalkers on the board. And yeah, Deathtouch Chevill getting that card value was huge. The Mecha Godzilla getting those counters, getting flying, and first strike against the Deathtouch deck was great. And then just enough removal to kind of clean things up as well. So yeah, it's a pretty fun deck. I enjoyed the Deathtouch Tribal. It's always fun to revisit that as they add additional Deathtouch creatures as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.